For some strange reason, you've decided to come back to NonSequitur. This episode was recorded live on the NonSequitur YouTube channel. You can catch NonSequitur live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. To check out our upcoming episodes, go to www.nonsecshow.com/schedule. That's NonSeq show.com/schedule. You can also keep up with the latest news, updates, and the occasional dumpster fire or two by following us on Twitter at NonSec Show or on Facebook, facebook.com/NonSec Show. If you'd like to become more than just a viewer, consider becoming part of our team. Our patrons get exclusive rewards like bi-weekly hangouts, early releases, after shows hosted on their channels, and even the opportunity to direct their own episode. They always have access to us through the Patreon and our Discord. And to learn more, please visit patreon.com/nonsequitur. If you enjoy this episode and you have the time, please consider going to iTunes and rating us. It goes a long way in making sure that these episodes get out to as many people as possible. On behalf of Steve, I'm Kyle Curtis. You're listening to NonSequitur. Never follow.
And normally this is where I would say we are live, but we just aren't. If you are expecting us, we apologize. We are in the middle of a copyright claim. We had on Thursday's video titled The Lost City of Z. It was the true story of the Lost City of Z, but a studio company in England, because they had a movie that came out with the similar title, struck the video claiming that we infringed on their copyright, even though nothing about the video was about their movie. So we are dealing with that. We cannot stream live until that's taken care of. Hopefully that will be soon. And I want to say a quick thank you to everyone on Twitter. We counted there have been at least 6,000 tweets to Studio Canal in the past 2 days from you guys. So we are greatly appreciative of that and your support during this time. But enough with the bad news. Let's get on with some good news. We have a fantastic treat for you guys today, and that would be Mercedes. Is it Carrera? Did I say that right? Mercedes Carrera? Excellent.
Very Spanish of you, Kyle. Muy bien.
Yeah, I was trying to get the.
He practiced that for like 4 hours this morning, by the way. In front of the mirror. Carrera.
It's good. I like it.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Usually we have in our, you can see it on your screen now, but we have this is our standard layout, and I figured I would do something fun and just festive for today. So Dave, let's get more into a porn star vibe.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow.
Hi.
This is so Kyle.
Yeah.
So Kyle.
I thought it was fitting. I've been wanting to pull out the pink for a long time. Pink is my favorite color, so this is an appropriate.
That's why it's so you.
I love
so
it.
yeah, let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and then we'll kind of dive into how you started out in the adult film industry and go from there. So take it away.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Where do I start? Okay. Well, most people on the internet who are not porn fans probably know me from being involved in Gamergate. I was very heavily involved in that. My background, I was a commercial print model in my teens, and then I ended up going to school for engineering. My father had been a hydraulics engineer. He was U.S. Army and then civilian contractor. I worked in aerospace for about 5 or 6 years in telecom for an additional, I think, 3. My background was in industrial engineering, although I ended up working mechanical. In aerospace, I worked mostly environmental tests for like space-based optics, so basically cameras at low Earth. So we did a lot of environmental test stuff like that. So that's kind of usually when people talk to me what they're interested in. Like, why would you go from from that.
Yeah.
I love those topics. We can sit here and talk about engineering for the rest of the show. Don't worry about anything else.
That's his thing. He's
Totally.
huge into that.
Like we're vibing then, because
They're there. I'm right there with you.
Perfect. Yeah.
I was a machinist. I was literally an engineer machinist with the Navy nuclear division. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks for your service too, man. I love the Navy. Yeah. Then you'll totally get. I actually worked on a lot of joint naval defense stuff. I worked for a very large aerospace company that starts with an R. If you know anything about,
I do. I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I worked on environmental tests for optical systems. Most of what we did was environmental test for thermal cycling. So a lot of the optics we're using mirrors, I guess you could say, made of beryllium and other materials. So we were looking for variances in how refractive they were, or and just the components. Like I did tribology for a while, which is the study of ball bearings. So I took ball bearings apart.
I've had to work with many a ball bearing in the Navy, I assure you.
Steve is over here.
I'm having an orgasm right now. This is like heaven. It's funny you mentioned beryllium, because I just had a show last night where a friend of mine had told me he was taking an engineering test, and he put every answer as beryllium. And basically his instructor thought it was so funny for some reason, actually passed him on the test. But for now we say that beryllium is the answer to everything.
Beryllium is a very interesting metal. It actually is highly, highly toxic. So outside of any laboratory that they use beryllium, and like especially some of the optical lenses we were using were probably about 3 feet in diameter. So these are fairly large payloads. But they have fantastic, I guess you would say, refractive capacities, which is why we would use them for optics. But when you shave it, it's a lot like asbestos, and it will get in your lungs and it can kill you. So you have to be very careful. I'm sure you know as a machinist.
Well, and also, I will be in the nuclear field. Beryllium's actually used as a reflector, too, for certain things like rocket engines that use nuclear propulsion. They have to have these beryllium things that actually move with a boron, and they actually will reflect neutrons, and that'll cause the rockets to actually have higher thermal energy. So I'm with you. I get you.
I got it.
It was like you brought on Mercedes to talk about rockets and nuclear fission. This is awesome.
I am fascinated though. How do you go from that type of career into the adult industry?
Well, so my background's weird because I grew up in LA, more or less, even though my dad would go on projects. So we'd end up like at Edwards Air Force Base and stuff like that for a while, a couple of years at a time. But growing up in LA, I was scouted as a model when I was a teenager. So I did that for, I think, like 4 or 5 years. And then when I went to college, I honestly didn't really care for the fashion modeling world. It's not interesting. I mean, you're wearing clothing. Like, it's a big fucking deal. So I went to college, and I went to Cal State. And so my father was a savant, a literal savant when it came to mechanics. He actually worked for SpaceX. Before he passed, and he worked on they created a hydraulic actuator system. So, like when you take the rockets out, you wheel them out, and then they have to go 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And then
you have to go
clamping mechanisms on them, right? So when it launches, those things have to time within something like 1/100 of a second in order for the thing to launch correctly. So my dad worked on that because they had a mechanized system, and then they went to hydraulic actuators because my father was a genius with stuff like that. So I grew up around engineering.
Wow.
I grew up in garages, and we didn't have any boys in the family, so I knew how to do all that shit, and I liked it. I liked building stuff. So I went to school, and I worked at several large corporations, and it was soul sucking enough that what happened was I ended up working in production for AV, and I got caught in a bad time too. There was a 08 crash. That really, I think a lot of it was timing. Like if I had been born 20 years before, I probably would have been very happy working at like JPL my whole life or something, But the rounds of layoffs, and so I ended up working in TV production behind the scenes. And actually, my boss in telecom did websites for adult industry people. So I actually had a server rack that I did technical training for telco, and he used one of the servers in my server rack to host all that shit in exchange for me getting.
See, now she's talking my language. Oh Lord,
that's awesome. Yeah. So you're
the voice
favorite.
of God, by the way. If you didn't know, that's our producer Dave.
That?
We just call him the voice, the disembodied voice is the voice of God. We call him. That's David.
Yeah.
God. Logo.
Producer.
Hello, Mercedes.
So I did. So what happened was actually like it was kind of a long progression because it's like you're talking 15, 20 years or something. But by the time I was doing that, and I knew a bunch of people in adult, and they were like, "Why don't you perform? You would be good at this." And I had actually escorted to pay for college. So yeah, so that it all just kind of went together. And I did a couple porn scenes. I thought, well, this is really easy money. So I did a couple of these. I paid off like the rest of my student loan debt and stuff with it, and then I didn't expect to keep doing it. And somehow I've been in, I think, almost 5 years now, and I'm busier than ever. So it's just a weird. It's an anomaly. I have no idea how it
Busy's good. Busy's good. Well, I mean, I have researched some of your work this week to make sure that we could all be acquainted and know what we're talking about. And I must say that you chose the right path. I will tell you that.
I didn't see him at all this weekend, by the way. He just said, "I'm going to be busy for like next 2 days, Steve. Just don't contact me."
And I'll tell you what. What's the coolest thing. I'm actually gay, and she actually did a really hot scene with 2 men in a bisexual. It was fantastic. So yeah.
I think I saw somebody tweet on that. They actually got upset. They actually said something along the lines of, "Why did you ruin a good scene with 2 men?" And your response was great. Your response was fantastic. I was like, that was brilliant. She's like, "Well, don't fucking watch it." Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It was weird that people say those things.
It's true, and I mean, he does have a point because there was a moment where I was ornamental. I was basically like a dog in a purse. I was completely unnecessary.
I you know what? I didn't do that much research on that particular episode.
I will say that you were necessary. It was great. But this is why it's cool to have you on, because the way that you just kind of made that introduction and told us what you like your experience before you started doing porn and like your vast level of knowledge, I think goes a long way to kind of kill the stereotypes people have, because for some reason people think that if you're a porn star then you're ditzy and you don't like, you know what I mean? There's that whole stereotype, and that's why we wanted to kind of bring you on to kind of go through that. Like, do you get a lot of that when you're when you're meeting people and they ask what you do and that sort of thing?
I gotta be honest. I'm kind of an introvert outside of my work stuff and like online. I don't really meet a lot of people and be like, "Hi, I'm a porn star," because it's actually I don't think we say that. I don't think that society is cool with that. So, and also I just don't know where I'd meet people. I don't really tell people what I do unless they know what I do. So I think that there's a stereotype, and I don't know that it's incorrect. I think that in the past, especially when you had a different society where there was a different level of opportunity for different kinds of work. Like I said, if I had been born 20 years prior, I probably would have worked at like Boeing my whole life, and it would have been fine. But when you work so hard at school and you want a career that you have some control over, sometimes it's very challenging. And like I said, I got caught up in a weird time because in 2008 they were just laying people off left and right. So that scared me, being a fairly young engineer at the time and thinking,
sure,
what am I going to do? Because especially the skill set I had, I mean, doing cryogenic thermal cycling, environmental testing for space-based, optical systems. I mean, there's 3 companies that do that. So if you get laid off in one, you got to hope the other 2 are hiring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was, and that's the reason telco. I think that there's a general perception, because I think that the industry creates it too, because the perception is that you have to be fucked up to do porn. And don't get me wrong, I'm totally fucked up. But, in order to do like
we're not. I mean, have you seen our show? I mean, literally.
You're in good company.
We actually have the audience for the fact that we are fucked up people. So, but in a good way. We're
in good company.
I mean, it is. It's true. But I think that there's kind of it's actually a smart business decision if you can do it. I have Asperger's, or I was diagnosed with it, I guess. So my experience in the industry is not the same as a lot of the girls. Like I heard you guys talking a little earlier, but there's kind of a real victim mentality happening even amongst a lot of the women in the world that are female